Tesla has headwinds they will face in 2025. Investors should be aware of that. Brian, you're too rosy on Tesla. Why don't you talk about headwinds? Well, I'm doing it, Brian. You're too bearish on Tesla. Why are you even mentioning it? Because if you're going to go into an investment, you should do it with your eyes wide open. And that's what we're here to do, is discuss not just the good things, but also the potential for bad things. I'm joined by CERN Basher, who not only knows his way around a spreadsheet, but is gracious enough to join me on this fine day. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futurasa. CERN, so great to have you once again.
Thank you, Brian.
Now, this Tesla company, so apparently you've heard of it?
I have. Yeah, I've done a little bit of work on it, a couple of hours of work. Yeah.
Oh, good. An hour or two. That's probably enough.
Yep.
We kid, of course. In the previous show CERN was on, when he said that the Model Y was the best-selling car in 23, and then he added, and probably in 24. That is the latest information that only came out 2 days ago. So he is actually following it that closely that he's able to so delicately couch and qualify the statement. I appreciate that attention to detail. It did not go unnoticed. So we've got some headwinds. Let's start with retooling is a big headwind. Talk to me about your thoughts on that, your concerns, your cautions, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, unlike a lot of products where you can retool and ramp up quickly, a vehicle takes a while. You have to move a lot of mass around. You've got different supply lines and different parts that go into these vehicles that are different. And so it takes a while to ramp up. So yes, it's going to take some time. The time is a headwind, right? It limits Tesla's ability to quickly ramp up a new product. It just does.
It just does. When you stop the car to change the tire on the side of the road, that is time on the road that you have lost forever. Except that once you put the new wheel on, you'll make better time than if you were just driving on a flat. And that's what we're hoping for with the Model Y, is that there are manufacturing efficiencies that have been introduced that will make it better, easier to make, simpler. And the beauty of that is it also makes it cheaper to repair. We got to see that the rear taillight diffuser is a single piece of injection molded plastic of a size that was so large that Tesla had to go to their suppliers and buy them new equipment because it didn't exist. And so that means they had to buy them one on each continent because that's where the lights are made. But it's a simpler product. It's a better way to do it. That is a headwind. Any other big headwinds we should be aware of?
Well, if you're just focused on autos, a headwind from a financial perspective is going to be this quarter's results.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It is clear that deliveries in Q1 are going to be low,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that number is, and maybe even Q2. It's going to take a little bit of time to ramp up. So if you are short-term focused, if you care about quarterly revenues and earnings, or if you value a company just based on, let's say, a PE ratio, we use a shortcut method, and you look at the earnings and you apply a PE to it, and you're applying the PE to what otherwise is depressed earnings, right? That's a headwind. That's a headwind to the valuation of Tesla. Now, if you do it properly, you should look at the earnings power of the company over a longer period of time than just one quarter or even just 1 year. But you know what? That's too much work. Most of Wall Street doesn't do that.
Most of Wall Street doesn't care past 1 or 2 quarters. And that's a real problem for a lot of auto manufacturers. You look at someone like GM, who gets a big pile of cash, which they should have used to invest in the future, and they invested in buybacks, which produces no value whatsoever. So if we're talking headwinds, let's talk about the competition, and let's get off automotive. We know what the automotive competition is. In China, it's fierce. In Europe, it's modest. In the US, it's essentially non-existent so far. It'll catch up at some point, we hope. But let's talk about robotics. There's a lot of competition in robotics. Is there headwinds from the competition in terms of robotics? I know you cover robots closely. What do you think?
Well, I don't know that this headwind from the competition. I think if anything, the competition spurs Tesla on and may even accelerate their progress, right? If you see a competitor do something or come out with something that definitely is going to spur the team on to get your product at the same point or beyond that. To me, the biggest headwind in robotics, and particularly the humanoid robot, again, is time. They know where they want to be, let's say, at the end of this year. Elon's talked about a run rate of a certain amount of robots at the end of the year. That's a goal. The question is how realistic is that goal? What are the odds that they can reach that at that point in time? Now, I would argue that doesn't really matter. As long as they're making consistent progress over time, whether they meet that goal for the number of robots produced this year or even the run rate at the end of the year, to me is kind of secondary. But for many people, that is seen as a massive headwind. They would
Mhm.
be very disappointed if Tesla does not produce 2, 3, or 4,000 humanoid robots in 2025.
What year was the light bulb invented?
Good question. I don't know
It
the exact year.
Because it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It does not matter. If it had come out 3 months earlier, 3 months later, 6 months earlier or later, it doesn't change our lives materially, but we all have light bulbs. That's my point on that.
yeah.
And when you look at robotics, the addressable market is, I don't know, would you say large?
It's probably one of the largest addressable markets I've ever seen.
I cannot think of a larger addressable
Yeah,
market. There is, uh, if you sold something that made everyone immortal, your market would be 8 billion. But if you sell robots, it is larger than 8 billion. This is larger than an immortality pill. So that's fairly bulky. When it comes to robot headwinds, is it reasonable to believe that there may be limitations on Chinese made and designed robots operating in countries like the US and throughout Europe due to security and privacy reasons?
absolutely. The humanoid robot is a surveillance machine, more so than a drone is. Drones can fly over things and see things. Humanoid robots are going to be inside buildings, seeing and listening
And
and
touching.
touching and doing, right, and taking and exploring. That's very different than the risk of drones. So I know a lot of people have said, "Well, we don't ban Chinese drones." Good point, but again, they're not the same. The
Mhm.
capabilities of these humanoid robots will be vastly superior to just drones. So I think it's highly likely that Chinese-made humanoids, once they get to a certain point, will not either not be allowed to be sold in the United States or certainly restricted in many areas, and likely also US-made bots in China.
We're already seeing it with things like autonomy.
Yeah.
And there are restrictions on the phones that you can buy in the US and the apps that you can use for exactly those reasons. A phone is a masterful piece of surveillance equipment, but it is at the end of the day a passive device, where a robot is an active device with yet more capabilities, although there is not a perfect overlap in what they can do. In terms of things like Dojo, compute more generally, I think I don't see headwinds there. I think Tesla is at the position they need to be, at the position they want to be. They will continue to expand as they can. But I don't see compute constraints as a headwind. Am I wrong?
That may be a headwind from time to time. It's one of those delicate things where over time, more compute is better. And so Tesla is going to continue to invest in more compute. And the question is, at any given point in time, do they have the precise amount of compute that they need? And I would
Hmm.
imagine from time to time, the answer to that may be no.
Hmm.
But generally, over the course of the year, they're probably pretty happy with where they're at now. If they weren't, they'd probably be spending more because they could
Okay.
spend more, right? Um, but over time, I think they're going to ramp up their compute spend pretty seriously.
You can deploy capital efficiently or inefficiently. If the only objective was to ramp compute, they could deploy capital inefficiently and get more compute quickly.
Yeah.
I don't see a need to do that, and apparently neither do they. Let's talk about Keyman risk. Is that a headwind?
I think it's always. I'm not sure it's a headwind for Tesla. I think it's just there,
Hmm.
right? There's no doubt that Elon is the key figure in Tesla. Now, I'm sure this upsets all the many thousands of Tesla employees worldwide who are working hard every day. And we saw that on Jay Leno's video. Franz and Lars, just how talented and how knowledgeable those guys are. Those guys don't need Elon looking over their shoulder to do their jobs. They're doing an amazing job, and there are thousands of other Tesla employees that are also doing an amazing job. Now, Elon is certainly a very effective business leader. Think of him what you will in the political realm, but from a business standpoint, Elon has proven to be a very effective leader of his companies, of his various companies. And so Tesla is running day to day without Elon's involvement in every single little piece. Obviously, he's very, very involved. So I don't see him, being distracted as a headwind for Tesla. Elon has very clearly proven his capability over many years now of being distracted every single day on every single other thing. There's been, whether it's the Twitter acquisition or a whole host of other things. Yet all of his companies have moved forward in very material ways over the quarters and the years in the past. So I don't think that will be any different going forward.
Well, you misunderstand. He was born rich, therefore richest man in the world. It's just how the math works, I'm told. Uh, I would argue he wasn't as rich as people like to pretend. Being rich in South Africa in the 80s, I would still choose being middle class in the US in the
I think
80s.
so.
There is, I mean, he cobbled together his first computer out of spare parts. That doesn't sound like champagne wishes and caviar dreams to me. I could be wrong. But the big thing is he just got lucky. Okay, lucky works if it happens once. You don't get lucky every single time. And you could argue he's been unlucky on Twitter, now X. Uh, but I don't think that understands that this is a hobby. This is a passion project for him.
Mhm.
And even if it is a business, okay, so one failure out of how many companies? That would, and it's not a failure, it's just a not raging success in the way some financial aspects of it uh, are working out. You don't get lucky every time. If you wish to call him an idiot, that's just jealousy and hate. So let's talk about, is his politics a headwind for the company?
I think it's a headwind for some investors. I think objectively, overall, him being associated with Trump is actually a bit of a tailwind for Tesla right now. Now, some of Trump's policies, I suppose, if you're talking about tariffs, could be perceived as a headwind for Tesla, but it's also a headwind for many other companies too. So they're all fighting the same headwinds. That's just the business environment, and companies are very adept at dealing with changing headwinds.
Mm-hmm.
But whether Musk's personal political focus is a headwind for Tesla, I would actually argue it's more of a tailwind at this point.
Well, I will tell you that I know a number of investors who I've known for years, who have sold out of the company because of the politics aspect. And I don't yet know anyone who's bought in because of it, because how would I? That's not my data survey group. I wouldn't know that. Um, so I know that that could be some of it. And some of these are fairly large investors. And by fairly, I mean very large investors. Uh, and but yeah, we don't know. We know that when the election was over and the winner had been declared, Tesla stock went up. That to me suggests that there are people who voted for Trump who are now invested in Tesla. I think that's not a big leap to make that assumption. Um,
The,
and yeah,
the thing that I would say, Brian, to those people that are sort of selling Tesla because, either a protest or they feel that Tesla and Elon no longer match their values, that's fine. You can do what you want. But my perspective on that is focus on finding the best investments and take those gains, that capital from those investments, and do the good in the world that you want to see. If you feel that others are not doing good in the world, you don't necessarily have to boycott what they're doing. Take what they're doing, make the money yourself, and then you can do good in the world in the ways and the areas that you feel are being missed. To me, that's the opportunity, because if you sell under protest and Tesla stock does fantastically well, what have you really achieved? You've made yourself potentially poorer for no good reason.
Well, that's the question is it for no good reason or is it for a very good reason? But I only took one philosophy class in college, so this is beyond my scope of discussion. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to all of you who would love to hear what goes on up in here, but it's mostly just carnival music. So what we're going to
Yeah.
do and I would say there are on the consumer side, there's more opportunity for headwinds due to politics, but on the B2B side, there isn't. There are very few megacorps that are interested in ethical investing. If you have the best tool for my business purposes, you get the contract. There is a utility that purchased a Tesla Megapack under duress. They did not want to, but they conducted an internal study saying, we need something. What do we do? And the answer is ESS systems. You need these big battery storage systems. And the study concluded they don't work. They're terrible, except for Tesla. And they were like, well, there you go. We're going to have to buy one, and it's going to be a Tesla.
Right.
So I think the business opportunity is much bigger than the consumer opportunity moving forward. The consumer opportunity is what built the company. The business opportunity is 90% of phase two. If you're angry and you will not buy a cyber cab, it doesn't matter because Uber's going to buy 1 million. I'm going to buy 10. I don't know, however many I can. If they print money, why wouldn't I buy as many as I can?
Yep. And speaking of energy in the Megapack, if we're talking about headwinds, the new factory in China, it's amazing. It's gone up fast. They're now producing them, right? But a headwind potentially is when do we start seeing the revenue? And we know there's a little bit of a lag. So even though the Megapacks are going out,
Mhm.
even though they're being, shipped across, wherever they're being deployed in China and Australia and other places, that's great. But we may not see much revenue on those until Q3, Q4.
I'd say Q3 at the earliest. So yes, you do get money when you take the order. You do get money when you ship. You do get money when it arrives, but you don't get all the money until it is electrified. And if the margin is 20%, that means until it's electrified, you are negative on it. That is a good catch, good analysis. You guys, Sir and Basher, ladies and gentlemen, give it up one time. This is why I bring you on, man. You are keeping pushing me out of the box a little.
Well, the other thing, Brian, too, I would add is the semi factory.
Mhm.
Same situation as the Chinese Megapack factory. We're seeing that being built. The
Mhm.
inside's being fleshed out. They'll start making trucks there. That's great. Again, that's a little bit of a headwind from a financial perspective because when does the revenue really start to flow?
Q3, Q4. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what 2025 is shaping up to be is, and Elon mentioned this on the earnings call, it's shaping up to be, to use his words, an epic 2026 and a
Yes.
ridiculous 27 and 28.
There's only so many times you can crank the handle before the jack in the box comes popping out the box. And will that be Q4? Will it be 2026? I would say that while we will see revenue from semi in 2025, we may not see gross margin. We will not see positive margin on those investments until next year, because there will be so much inventory tied up. We will begin depreciating the factory. All of those fixed costs will have to be accounted for. We have good information on this channel. I hope you come back and join us again. Everybody, like, subscribe, do what you do. You can throw me a buck or two on any of the ways to support. I still have a couple of referral credits left if you wish to save a little stack of cash on your Tesla purchase. And everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy. And I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots when I get Certain Basher to come back again.
Can't wait, Brian. Thank you.